Thank you, everybody, for joining. In the next 30 minutes, I am going to share with you my passion for leadership and culture in the automotive industry, how that relates to internal communication, and how we're going to amp up internal communication and take it to the next level with an internal podcast and a little dash of AI. So we ready to go?
Ready.
All right, let's do it. For those of you who may not know me, I think most of you do, but there's a few new names on here. So let me tell you a little bit about me. I'm Jam. I'm the founder of Griffiths, Detroit. I'm Welsh. I'm very proud to be Welsh. I have spent over 30 years in the tier one space in the automotive industry, primarily in supply chain, purchasing, a little bit of program management and sales thrown in there, but really frontline tier one all the way. And I have to tell you, I completely underestimated the power of the communications team. So for those of you who are in communications, can I apologize? For my entire career, I underestimated you, but now I get it. So I understand some of the issues when you're leading a large function. My last role, I was responsible for supply chain for a $3 billion company. And when you're trying to reach a global organization, when you're trying to get those messages across, it's hard. It's really difficult. Organizing those town halls, those global meetings, some people are off asleep. It's really difficult to do. There's got to be a better way to do this. So I struggled with those issues during my corporate career. And so 7 years ago, I left that corporate career and I started my own business, Griffiths, Detroit, because I believe that in this industry, in order to transform this industry for the future, we have to change how we operate. And my tagline is simply this: you would never run a 4K video on a 95 Windows operating system now, would you? So what makes you think that we can transform this industry to EVs with all the technologies, with software-defined vehicles, all the tech that's coming at us, using the same operating system, the same culture that we've had for decades? We're not going to do it. We have to change our culture, who we are, how we operate, and how we make decisions. And so that's when I started Griffiths, Detroit. Now I do a lot of workshops with tier one leadership teams, and I thought, you know what? This is great that we get tier one leadership teams on the same page. I talk to them about goal alignment, priorities, accountability, about culture. And that's great when you get a leadership team in one room. But how do you get that message out into the organization, particularly when you've got thousands and thousands of people in multiple regions around the globe? How do you get that message out? How do you bind these people together? So one thing I learned was the power of podcasting. And I started a podcast over 5 years ago. It's called the Automotive Leaders Podcast. If you're not subscribed, it's everywhere. It's on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. Because I wanted to focus on leaders in the auto industry who get it, who understand that we've got to move away from command and control and employ more of an authentic leadership style. And if you're a subscriber to the podcast, you will know that I feature a lot of tier one CEOs, anybody that can contribute to the conversation that really gets it, understands culture. And then I wrote a book about it. We had the book launch last year. It's called Auto Culture 2.0. But that's still not enough. I've still got to figure out how on earth we close the gap between interviewing all these CEOs, having this top leadership alignment and understanding, and getting that message through real time into the organization, getting the authentic voices, both from the leadership team out to everybody in the organization, yes, including the shop floor. And then how do we get those voices back? There's got to be a better way to do it. And I figured it out. I want to talk for a moment about employee engagement. I'm sure the HR people will be familiar with the data I'm about to share, but this is the culture we want. We want people to feel like this, like jumping up in the air, like, yes, we are part of this company. We will go through walls for our leader. We're going to make it happen. We're going to transform this company, transform the industry, and we're going to get it done. Now, there's an awful lot to getting to that image that you see right there on the screen. And Gallup suggests that only 31% of employees in the US are fully engaged, meaning they come to work, they're not afraid to bring their voice forward, they give you all of that discretionary energy, they'll give you their all. 31%. And I would suggest that number in automotive is much lower. So what are we going to do? How are we going to get these people excited and enthused about culture, about making decisions, about speeding up how we do business in auto? This is how people are feeling a lot of times, and we don't want that. Okay, how does communication link to this? Well, I found this piece of data from McKinsey, and it said that an effective internal communication process boosts employee productivity by 20 to 25% and improves employee engagement. Okay, so internal communications. Over I would say the last year or so, I've been really diving deep into internal comms. What is it all about? And how do we do it? I am going to launch a poll here. I would love to know, how effective is internal communication in your company today? But then I'd also love to know, what channels do you typically use for internal comms? Yeah, I see it. Emails, intranet, town halls. Okay, somebody's got an app on employees' phones. The number one method of internal comms is email, followed by town hall meetings. Okay, great. Now, the problem that we have with that is that emails only get to a certain population of people. It doesn't get to the shop floor. And I don't know about you, but when I get a corporate email, I would scan it. And I may get something from it. Often it was written in corporate speak. It wasn't written in normal human language. And so I would scan it and then I would move on. Sometimes I wouldn't even read it. Email is good, but it's not great because it doesn't get to everybody. And the largest population of your people, of your employees, are on the shop floor. So how do you reach the shop floor? Are you relying on some poor first line supervisor? Let me tell you, his or her priority is not to take any corporate communication to the shop floor. That's the last thing they're thinking about. So email is one way. It's not the most effective way. Now, town halls are great because you get to see people in action. And now you start to introduce tone and some context. And it tends to be a little bit more authentic because you're seeing people actually delivering a message. But again, town halls are difficult to schedule. And then you've got people on multiple time zones. And half of them are asleep. If you're doing a Zoom call or some type of video conference, you don't know if people are really paying attention. You don't know how much of the messaging that they're actually retaining. So town halls are good, but they're difficult to schedule. And they're expensive too if you get into some sophisticated video equipment. So these two are good avenues, but again, it's not fast enough and frequent enough. So what do we do? Well, my biggest concern is the shop floor, because the shop floor gets left behind in all of this. And I gave myself a challenge about 18 months ago to figure out how to do this. How do we get culture? How do we get messages and bind all of these people together? How do we take what the people and the leadership team talks about in the workshop when we're talking about goal alignment, we're talking about culture? How do we get that through the entire organization quickly? And let's not forget the challenge of multiple languages. You can say all day long, oh, my corporate language is English. Okay, nice. But a large percentage of the workers on your shop floor don't speak English. So how are you going to bridge that gap? That's where AI comes in. So how do we connect the shop floor? How do we make this a vibrant culture where everybody's on board? I thought about my experience with podcasting, and I thought, well, wait a minute. Why don't we take the power of podcasting and channel it and use it for employees within a company, an internal podcast? Think of it like an internal radio station. You can get people on demand. You don't have to schedule anything. It's on demand. It's short bursts of information, of communication, typically in an interview kind of format. So it's storytelling. So it's real voice. So you're starting to build trust now because it's not a corporate speak. It's not an email that they're reading. It's not a town hall. It's not overly rehearsed. It's just people talking. They could be talking about projects. They could be talking about new programs. They could be talking about culture. They could be talking about your values. How it could be recognition. You can even use it for your supply base, to connect your supply base. There's so many different uses that you can use, that you can design a podcast around. And it's short. So you don't ever want these things to be more than, I would say the sweet spot is about 10, 12 minutes. And deliver it in multiple languages around the globe. Boom. Done. Wow. Okay, so I had this idea, and it's not my idea. Of course, there are many other companies that do this. But where in automotive, you'll appreciate this. You know, in automotive, we're big on numbers, on metrics. And you might say, oh, well, that sounds great. But how am I going to get metrics? And I've learned from talking to internal comms people that getting metrics for internal comms is really hard. I mean, you can get an email open rate, but you know, how effective is that really? And again, you're not getting to the shop floor. So this is a process that I've been dialing in with a few of my current internal podcast clients, and we finally nailed it. And I'm thrilled to share this with you. So we can tell you, and this data is made up, obviously, for purposes of this presentation. I didn't want to share confidential data, but we can tell you by plant how many people download a podcast. And then what we do is we run the numbers, we run a percentage by the number of employees in that plant. So we can see how many employees are actually listening to the podcast. Now, what's really fascinating is the low engagement level. So you see Clarkston and McKinney at the bottom. They have the low download numbers, the low engagement numbers with the podcast. Do you know that that data correlates directly to the financial results of the plant? The plants that are not performing well are the ones that have the low engagement. So that tells us there's an issue there. There's a culture issue. There's a problem there. And this data is lining up exactly to the financial results of the plant, which I didn't expect. So having downloads by plant is one thing, but are people really listening and retaining the message? So here's the answer to that. This is straight from the back end of the podcast platform. So I can tell from all the people that download the podcast when they drop off. So you can see, if you look at the bottom, it says episode time. All those little dots represent a download and when people drop off. In the beginning, some people are like, nah, I don't want to listen to this. This is real data. And when you get, they call this in podcast lingo, we call that a consumption rate. So the consumption rate for this podcast is 53.9%. You want to see a number above 50%. Above 50% is good. Obviously, you want to try and improve it. But this gives really good internal data so that we can decide, okay, is the content not good? What do we need to change it? Is it too long? If you notice, this episode is almost 14 minutes. That's just a little bit too long. I think 10 is probably where we're going to land here. But each company, each culture is going to be a little different. But this data, it gives us data that we can really dial in the internal comms strategy. That's what I'm so excited about. And actually just figured this out not too long ago on how to get it by plant. Now, I want you to imagine this. Imagine a world where you reach all employees everywhere. No computer or internet required. We do this with a simple QR code. It's a QR code that goes straight into the podcasting platform. So what we do with the plants is we put posters up in the break rooms. We put posters up in the plant as you walk in the plant. And then we've also recently started using the texting service that the HR people have to send links to the podcast. Just recently, in fact, last week, I am working on an alignment with a company that provides the texting service, but with two-way feedback so that we can get direct feedback from people on the podcast if they like it, if they don't like it. So we're starting to get that two-way communication system. So it's frictionless access. A lot of people don't want a company app on their personal cell phone, particularly the shop floor. When we started this, we were looking at doing that. And the feedback we got from the shop floor was, oh, hell no. We do not want a company app on our phone. Okay. Would you click a QR code? Yeah, they would. Okay. So it makes it easy. It's not intrusive. Floor workers don't have a corporate email typically. They may not have a computer to access, but I guarantee you 99% of people have a smartphone. If they have a smartphone, I can give them access to this. Communication is received on demand. So people are consuming your messages when they want to listen, not on some scheduled town hall, some scheduled webinar. They got to be at a computer to watch a video. No, they can listen to it on the drive to work, during break, in the lunchroom, when they're at the gym, whenever. You know yourself. When do you listen to podcasts? So it's on demand. It's when they want to consume the content, not when you decide to push it out. And what I love about podcasting is its real voice, its real tone, its authenticity. It's people talking in natural language. It's storytelling. Some of the most powerful episodes I've done for my internal podcast clients are people from the shop floor, where we've interviewed them, talked about their passion around health and safety, some new ideas that they have on the shop floor. That's the power. It builds trust. We talk about culture being built around trust. When people they actually hear the tone, whether it's leadership or whether it's coming the other way from the shop floor. You can hear it. It's a much more powerful message, and you build trust with tone and with context, which is hard to do with email. The multilingual translation, I've been perfecting this, and it's taken a while, because if any of you have ever tried to use AI to translate English audio, it's not very good. It's about 70 to 80% right, depending on the language. But I use a process where I use AI to do the heavy lifting, but then I have humans in the loop that refine the translation. I can guarantee Spanish at a 98% accuracy level. And the other languages we're coming up to speed with right now. But it retains the original voice. So imagine your CEO speaking 5 different languages, using his voice. What that does to people that speak those languages, how connected and inclusive they feel, it's incredibly powerful. I'll share with you an example. You increase message retention. So often when people are in town halls, they're not listening. People are listening when they want to listen. You improve the message retention rate. And you have real metrics for internal comms, real data. At the end of this, the mission is to build a strong culture of engaged employees. And this is one way to do that. And I couldn't be more excited about it. So this is my voice with the Welsh accent. So you're going to hear the English. How do you make sure that you're getting your leadership messages through every single person in your company? The answer is simple. It's an internal podcast, and we're able to use AI to generate your podcast, your very own company radio station, in multiple languages. Generar tu Podcast. Die Antwort ist einfach. Über einen internen Podcast, Ihren Podcast. I think you get the point. When I first did this, it blew my mind. To hear yourself speaking a different language it's crazy. I interviewed the CEO of the Gemini Group on the Automotive Leaders Podcast a few weeks ago, and he was so excited about this that we agreed to release it in Spanish, the full episode. And I will put that in the chat for you. So if you want to share it with people, tell me about the accuracy, because accuracy is everything. AI is great. We all love AI. But it really isn't as good as some people think it is. I think there it is. Right. It's in the chat. So feel free to share that with people to see how accurate it is. Okay. So I will open it up for questions.
I like it. I think, the multiple languages is powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And when I get feedback from companies that hear their leaders speaking their language, my client that I have an internal podcast with right now, they did it with their CEO interview, and the plants in Mexico thought 100% that he could speak Spanish, and he can't speak a word of it. I was so happy with that because that's how good it is. The AI just takes the heavy lifting out of it. You've got to have humans in the loop. We perfect it. We go run it through cycles and cycles and cycles to get it right, because you can't put something out there to your organization that isn't good or that sounds like a robot. You can't do that. You've got to get it right. And I'm all about that. Okay. So I believe the future of communication has arrived. I believe that this is the way to build culture and alignment quickly. I am all in on this. I am more than happy to help you. If you want to talk about doing this yourself, I'm more than happy to help you do that. But I will warn you, there's a lot of work behind it in making it work. If you want to talk about how to do this in your organization, I am ready to go. Just click this QR code and book a discovery call with me. We can talk about running a pilot. We typically run a pilot first. There's a lot of detail that we have to work through, the strategy behind it. It's just like any other business project. What are we going to do? What do the episodes look like? What does the theme look like? It's got to run alongside either an HR or a comm strategy or something else in the business. And then we run a pilot and we evaluate the results, and either it's a go or it isn't. It's all okay. But I am all in on this. I couldn't be more excited. Thank you so much for giving me your time and attention today. I am so excited about changing the culture in the automotive industry. This is what I do. This is what gets me up in the morning and keeps me going. This is why I walked away from my corporate job. And I am all in. I hope you are too. And I look forward to talking to you one-on-one. Thank you.
Great job, Jan.
Great. Thank you. Have a good weekend.
Thank you all.